Hello and welcome. This is Dario Betti. Hello and welcome here to a different type of webinar. All in all, we are a bit embarrassed. We're talking about ourselves. We're talking about the Mobile Ecosystem Forum and its 20th anniversary, and slightly older actually, but we'll go there later. But we will do that with the help of Andrew Budd, CBE, Frank, Chairman of MEF, and the CEO of iProve. A lot of titles, they don't all fit over there in the picture. So, hello, Andrew.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi. Well, we're very lucky to have you here because, Andrew, you've been at the founding time of MEF. You've been throughout and recently for the last 13 years. Do I get it wrong? Or have you been the chairman?
12 years, like 2008.
And I think that's pretty much, you should know all the ins, the outs, the things that should go, some people blushing, maybe, but we'll take these also as an excuse, not just to talk about MEF, but to look at the last 20 years for the ecosystem, really. So it's a bit of an excuse to talk in general terms as well. We'll try to be playful. So hopefully we'll see if we manage. We'll also have a few voices from other people at MEF in between, and we'll comment them as well. But the actual big thing we'd like to invite everybody, including people that are watching right now, is that MEF has been made up by people. As an organization, it's an organization of people. And the best way to celebrate is celebrate its people. And so we started on social media. You can find some of our different video and profiles. If you are out there and you'd like to contribute, please feel free, do so on social media or send us an email. I will remind you that later. And if you do have questions in our live sessions, please use the Q&A button and let us know what you'd like to know. I mean, here we got the living memory, the big archive of Andrew available. So it's once and only you can do that. But Andrew, let's start, if you're okay, with a little game of 20 years at MEF. Is that okay? Well, my way to do that is to look at the past, the present, and the future, and nothing else. The future would be at this point, but look in the decades in the future. It's not even a single year we're looking at. We expanded what's going to happen next. And so let's start with the past. If you're ready, we'll go. Well, my first question to you in the preparation was, what should we talk about? You did suggest that wouldn't it be nice to have some comments from people on what they said. So here we are, and Andrew, first time you've seen them, so you can actually start reading while I'm blabbing around. But these are some of the comments, feedback from past members, existing members, and one of them is in for future members, somebody was just joining now. Now they are, I should say, highly complimentary, so I'd like to thank them a lot. Obviously, in a 20th anniversary, you expect them to be nice to you, but here we go. We classified them roughly into 4 areas. One is about the nature of MEF, which is its meta associations. We have an association of different markets itself, and the peculiarity of that, the importance of people, and the fact that we might have said things which probably went against the current thinking, and probably we did prove some of those to be quite right. And finally, the open house concept, the fact that we really are a wide roof, very little walls in between, so that everybody can walk in. Now, before I go and comment some of them, question for you, Andrew. Have you seen something here which you would like to agree with? You are very happy to disagree as well.
I recognize MEF in all of these. What's interesting is that if you look across it, the key message is that we were never hidebound, and we were never kind of rooted in orthodoxy prey to the current myth, bound to one slice of the market. We always had the sense that we were slightly swimming against the tide. We were never, I mean, in a world in which, for the center of the market was very ably represented by this great behemoth of the GSM Association, we were to some extent always an outsider. And that role of outsider meant that we were freer to find our position, to go looking for the problem that needed to be solved, to go looking for the ideas that needed to be promoted, to go out and get together with people in unconventional ways. That very fact that we were, in a way, a bit of an outsider gave us the freedom not to be hidebound. And I think that's one of the messages. Because we were small and unorthodox, that gave us that gave the organization a personality which I think is reflected by all of these points.
And it's, as I say, is very complementary. I can see MEF in a lot of these. Equally, I could say that you could turn around some of them and probably turn around some of their weakness. Actually, let me ask you before I go there. And Andrew, what have we done badly? What did we get wrong? I like the fact that there's a big pause before. Yeah. It makes me feel better.
Well, look, that's the most sensible question that you can ask. Anybody with a bit of retrospective. Look, we made lots of mistakes. We were inventing a whole organization. I mean, really, there haven't been many organizations like MEF in the past. So we were making this thing up as we went along. And there were a lot of very creative people, a lot of very intelligent people, and we were solving problems that for many of us was the first time we'd ever solved them before. And so sometimes we got those answers wrong. I'm not going to go into all of them, but in many cases, in most cases, it was neither idleness nor stupidity. It was just it was the first time we'd done it, and we just made a misjudgment. I think the thing that I found consistently frustrating was that today it's very clear that MEF is solving an growing number of extremely clear problems for the industry. We have a very well-defined role in a number of areas, and that's growing. And so if people ask us today, what is MEF for? There are 3 or 4 very concrete answers that we can provide, and that number is growing. And for too many times in our past, we couldn't answer that question clearly. We couldn't succinctly say, this is what MEF is for. We hadn't identified with sufficient clarity the problems that we were there to solve. And I found that personally frustrating on a number of occasions. But you know what? The reason was that it was hard to identify those problems. It was hard to pin them down, and it was hard to see how we could actually solve them, given what at times were really quite limited resources.
And I also ascribe that to be the nature, which was a successful formula of being across markets. But when I go and talk to some people and say, and try to answer the question, what is MEF? I have to start and say, it is not a specific sector. And it is not, it's very difficult to define something that isn't. Rather be something that you represent one single corner and you know what your job is. You have to reinvent yourself much more if you are trying to bring people together and talking to each other. I would also say that that's my personal experience, but I'll ask you that debunking needs being unorthodox, telling the truth, or what we think is the truth at least, but an alternative to common understanding, is challenging sometimes. Not everybody wants to hear the truth, even if they know that it is the truth. So the debunking the myth, the telling how it is, we're not always welcome everywhere. There are some people that like
I mean, it made us very at various times it made us very unpopular. I mean, it really did make us very unpopular. But we had a business interest in doing so. I mean, along the life of MEF, there were very often companies that were struggling to affirm themselves in the value chain, knowing that what they were doing was valuable, knowing that what they were doing was right, but the conventional orthodoxy had basically written them out of the story completely or made them marginal. And so re-steering the narrative was a business necessity. I will say that in the history of MEF, there have been some incredibly bright people, starting with its first chairman, Hans Morawiecki, who was a professor of game theory at the Technion, as well as being a tremendous innovator. You had very smart people, and very smart people have a bit of a weakness of it's kind of fun to be right when others are wrong. So I will say that it may have been part of the character of people to have a little bit, to get a certain enjoyment out of explaining to the rest of the market why they were wrong, but there were ample opportunities, because the mobile industry particularly in the last 20 years, in the first of those 10 years, had a tremendously strong herd instinct. Mobile operators had a tendency to drink whatever that was fed, to eat whatever was fed to them by the big telecoms vendors, and to socialize these ideas, even when these ideas were patent nonsense. And there were a whole series of things that looked shiny but weren't, all the way through the noughties. And all we had to do was to stand up. What we had to do was to stand up and go, it ain't so. The very beginning of MEF was all about giving personality to an industry that no one was prepared to accept existed. The Mobile Entertainment Forum, as we founded it as, was there to give a voice and a personality to an industry that people simply refused to acknowledge the existence of. Well, by the mid-noughties, this business was the mobile entertainment industry that people really struggled to accept existed, was bigger than the world's recorded music industry. And part of the heterodoxy that we had, part of the story that we had to get out there, was the fact that, hey guys, we matter. We're bigger than theatrical cinema. And people went, really? You lot? Yes, us lot. And that was terribly important for all of the value chain members, because it gave them stature when they were talking to financiers, banks, potential customers, and trying to explain why they had a brilliant present and why they had a brilliant future ahead of them. And our independent voice gave them, in a sense, gave them some air cover for that.
And I think it might have been the fact that you were visionaries and you knew it, or the lack of it. But by touching on these complex ecosystems of different players working together, you probably touched on the biggest single innovations in the last 20 years, the business implications of the internet. There are no more roles, everybody working together. This is still happening today. And not surprisingly, that you can today hit the 20 years mark and milestones that not many associations can get, because we're probably talking of one very core and surprising element in the evolution. Half of the companies we're probably discussing into the year 2000 do not exist today.
I think if I think of all of the companies that were there at the beginning, I'm not sure I can think of one that still exists. I mean, the company that I represented in 2000, when I joined the founding board in 2000, its brand no longer exists. M-Blocks has been absorbed into Cinch. Now, Cinch, as a business concept and a business model, is very much what we were in. So arguably, there's a linear relationship there. But of the other players, the industry has been transformed so utterly, they've all vanished without trace.
And the vanish, change, transformation, that's all what you're talking about in here. And hopefully MEF has done that through the years, through its people as well. So I'd like to introduce now one of those people. And I think we're going to start with one of the original chairman, the second one. You mentioned the first. I'll take my video off and I'll leave you with Patrick Parodi. So here is Patrick for you.
Happy 20th anniversary MEF. Wow, time has really flown by. I had the honor of being on the board of the Mobile Entertainment Forum for the first 10 years and was global chair for 4 of those. MEF started well before the iPhone, smartphones, Facebook, Netflix, when carriers needed WAP gateways for people to access the internet, when phones only had grayscale screens and ringtones needed to be preloaded, But the folks involved with the MEF saw the future when mobile phones would replace TVs, cameras, CD players, computers, and essentially morph into an extension of our brains, representing a window onto the virtual world. Now, in order to deliver on that vision, the industry needed a place to gather and resolve issues that couldn't be dealt with in a vacuum or by one or two players. And as Andrew pointed out, we needed a platform to represent each link in the mobile value chain. Now, the organization spread like a virus, the good kind. We brought together forward-thinking people from the movie business, the music industry, the games business, news, media, advertising, and of course, the mobile operators, device manufacturers, and all that wonderful software that fits in between. We launched ringtone charts. We got members to sign codes of conduct for short code subscriptions. We created really cool infographics representing the value chain. But most importantly, we created relationships between forward-thinking people and their businesses. Yes, ideas were born, companies were formed, deals were done, MEFs were won, and it's been great to see how this network is still growing today under the guise of the mobile ecosystem forum. So happy birthday, MEF. And I challenge my friends Rima Perlmutter, Ralph Simon, Gerard Gretsch, Stefan Rust, and Niraj Roy to post their videos celebrating MEF's 20th anniversary. Over to you.
Well, we heard from Patrick and Andrew, and well, a couple of things that I'd like to point out from that. First is he mentioned the MEFs, which is lovely to say. We are going to have MEFs awarded in about 10 days. So that would be, it's very timely, very perfect. We keep the traditions. We haven't moved too far there. But one thing also that he mentioned among the others is, again, people. So he mentioned Rima Perlmutter, Ralph, I think he also mentioned Gerald, big names of MEF history. And all of those invited by him and by us to contribute to the videos. So you will see their contributions on our social media as soon as they share with us. So the fun continues. But I should ask you, to mention something about all of these people that have worked with us and with MEF.
I mean, Patrick was a wonderful chairman. I mean, just tremendous creativity, charisma, and the MEF was his idea, and he created them, and just his energy, his enthusiasm, the breadth of his vision about what MEF could be. He was wonderful. I was his vice chairman, and I enjoyed every minute of it. It was sad when he went. He's continued to be a great friend of MEF ever since. But look, he mentioned Rima. And Rima Perlmutter was the fundamental pilaster, the fundamental foundation for MEF for 18 years. She was absolutely the central figure in creating, building, and growing this organization. In many ways, MEF was partly an expression of her personality, and so many of the members who joined and stayed did so because of their relationship with Rima, and just her charm, the force of her personality, the breadth of her networking were extraordinarily important in making MEF the extraordinarily giving MEF the vitality that it had for all these years. I mean, I imagine the vast majority of people watching here today, even if they've been relatively recently involved in MEF, will have encountered Rima and she will have communicated her commitment and enthusiasm for MEF to them. So, I mean, there is no exaggeration. I don't think there is no doubt, in fact, that MEF would not have reached its 20th anniversary without the leadership of Rima for all those years. And I think the organization owes her a tremendous debt of gratitude for all she did in those years.
And you know what, Andrew, on that, I will also mention there the fact that the MEF was probably at the time still forward thinking, having so much of the women power in technology, which is not just Rima, but I should mention, but many others, and one among them is Joanne, which is left MEF, still an advisor just like Rima, but left MEF just only a few months ago. So both of them, the heart of MEF was run by women in technologies, and it did work perfectly well. So well done to both of them.
The women have played a remarkably important role actually in the history of MEF. There have been many who've been important. Cecil Larson, for example, from Telenor, was a very profound, had a very profound impact on the organisation. Unfortunately, I have a shocking memory for names, so I sometimes forget the names of my best friends, which I'm just embarrassed about. But we had a lady from South Africa who was very fundamental. There were a lot of women involved in MEF, and they made a very profound role. You're right, Joanne had an interesting process, had an interesting career with MEF, because she started her engagement right back at the beginning with Digital Bridges, if I remember correctly, when Digital Bridges under Kevin was an absolute founding member. So she was involved in building it, and then she went away and did other things, and then she came back and became Chief Operating Officer. And I think a lot of the fact that MEF is flourishing today is in very large measure due to her extraordinary contribution. Just her organization, her focus, her commitment through some really quite difficult times for her. Her creativity. I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Dario, but I mean the whole smishing initiative is Joanne's construction. I mean, a tremendous contribution, and I think we all miss her terribly.
Right. So now,
and I didn't mention the women's staff. You know, the MEF organization has been built on some fabulous women. Whether it's Ava or Miranda or our wonderful finance lady. I mean, sorry, yeah, absolutely, just extremely important.
So I think we're very happy still today to be more of an equal employer in terms of women and gender. But I will push the game forward, Andrew, because we talked about the past, and some of these names are the illustrious past. Let's talk about the present. And the little game for us is to show us some of our marketing material. Let's see if that's really represent what we do. Now, we tell our friends and future members that we help them to understand, to influence, and to monetize mobile. Now, quick question there, and we need to start questions what we do, but are we right still talking about mobile? You show us when we move from entertainment to ecosystem forum. Is the M for mobile still up to date?
Isn't that an interesting question? Rima and I used to debate this frequently. About every 3 or 4 years, this question would come up as a major existential question. There were real times, there was a period when there was a belief that somehow mobile would simply disappear and become just another way for the delivery of the internet, and that therefore the concept of the mobile delivery of the internet was a bit like saying, well, the £300 laptop ecosystem forum. I think we were both very much of the opinion that wouldn't happen, and it still hasn't. And in fact, the opposite has happened, in a sense. Mobile has eaten the internet. But I think there is still a definite, and the sense always was, and I think it remains today, that there is a definite personality to the mobile industry, created by the interaction between the mobile operators, the issuers of the SIM cards, and the value chain built on top of the mobile operators, and the interaction with that, with service providers who interact with them directly, and people then who run over the top. What gives this industry its character is the presence of the mobile operators in counterpoint, with a powerful counterpoint and a powerful direct relationship with the customer, compared to people further down the ecosystem. There is clearly also an issue which is very closely associated, which is to do with the form factor. The form factor of a mobile device is fundamentally different from from televisions and laptops and even tablets. So the combination of the unique nature of a value system, partly forged by the presence of the mobile operators, and partly characterized by the form factor, those are what make mobile mobile. And mobile is different from gaming. It's different from television. It's different from Apple and Windows PCs. So yes, and those things that make mobile special are the things that make MEF special.
So we've changed in the past the E from entertainment to ecosystem, but there is no risk of changing the M of MEF into a TEF, a FEF, or anything else. We're going to stay mobile for quite a bit. Well, time, however, to go back at some more of the different messages from our funding, our friends, and now we listen to Ron Czerny.
Hi, MEF family. This is Ron Czerny. I'm the founder and CEO of Pelon, and I'm here to share some of my experiences in the past 20 years with MEF. My experience started actually in 2003 when I established Pelon, and we immediately during that time we were involved in mobile entertainment, ringtones, games, music, and so forth. And between 2003 and 2010, we experienced a huge revolution, as we all know, the growth of the mobile entertainment as a whole globally. MEF played an amazing role in providing guidance to global carriers. Initially was focused in Europe, and when I entered with more focus in North America and Latin America, we discussed how to grow the MEF experience in involvement in a global scale. And with the partnership with Andrew, Rima, and the rest of the board, we discussed the establishment of the MEF chapters internationally. And first, I was the head of the MEF Latam, became the chair, and to execute and launch the MEF Latam. And we were very successful in that. We started with events in Brazil. We had dozens of events in São Paulo and Rio, and eventually in Miami, bringing all the carriers and players in the ecosystem together. It was a huge success. And we even brought in the code of conduct that shaped the vast services in Latin America. Rafael Pelon was a key player in helping us implement the code of conduct in Brazil. And that's still today one of the key guide for all vast services in Brazil. And after the Latin success, we expanded to North America, and I also chaired the North American chapter. And we did amazing events in San Francisco, also helping the industry in North America. So my experience with MEF has been tremendous, especially in the first, between 2003 and 2012, 13, for the first 10 years. With the scale of the mobile entertainment as a whole globally. But I'm very honored to be part of the MEF family. I hope to see amazing things of MEF in the next 20 years. And I wish all the best of luck to the current board and the current team of MEF internationally. You can count with my help and support always. Thank you, and go MEF.
Well, so Andrew, the internationalization of MEF starts in Europe, solely actually in UK, I should say, within London, but it spreads like wildfire, as Patrick says, like a virus in a positive note, a positive one. and we talked about LATAM, but equally, and then US with Ron, but equally you could say, but Africa, Middle East, Asia, our presence was truly global. What do you think that makes the different geography equal yet different? Why does a mobile ecosystem works across so many different territories?
So firstly, there are a number of similarities, as I said. The fundamental structure of the ecosystem is basically the same. There are slight variations. In the United States, obviously, there is a much higher degree of concentration of power in the mobile operators compared to the much more distributed environment in other parts of the world. People's propensity to buy things on their mobile phones was high everywhere, and in some cases it was much higher. I mean, text messaging as a medium was enormous out in the Far East earlier on. The use of USSD became a huge thing in South Africa. But generally speaking, people around the world, the value chain had a similar texture around the world, and people tended to behave in the same way around the world. And that's why you saw companies that were born in one market, like in Italy, for example, which was a very difficult market. You had about 4 or 5 companies, people like Dada, which or Buongiorno, which was successful in Italy, then ended up as worldwide, as massive worldwide companies, because they found that they could sell the same services in the same sort of way through the same value chains everywhere in the world. Having said that, we had a lot of. It was very challenging for MEF to expand internationally because the texture of the industry fabric felt different. Was very different in different territories. Our expansion was very much mediated by people, by individuals. Ron was absolutely fundamental to our enduring success in Brazil. It was MEF LATAM happened because of Ron. If he hadn't been there, it wouldn't have happened. MEF in the United States happened because of Ralph Simon. And after Ralph, other people came along and picked up the baton. After Ron, other people came and picked up the baton, but it wouldn't have happened without those people. So our moving into new territories ultimately depended upon people in those places who knew their markets, who shared the MEF vision. And sometimes the markets diverged from our vision, and without a visionary to bridge that link, we faded away. So MEF really doesn't exist in the United States anymore, to my considerable disappointment. And I think we will start to exist again. I think that's going to change, but it really depended upon people like them, and this lady whose name I struggle to remember, and I'm embarrassed to say this, who really set us going in South Africa, and the team that got us going the team that got us going out in Southeast Asia for a while, and guys like Colin Miles, who kept it going in Southeast Asia for a long time. Asia was a particular challenge to us because it was such a dispersed geographical area. It was so diverse in its physical conformance, so it made it very difficult for people to physically get together and network. The nature of the markets was very different. So a crisis that blew up in Indonesia was not reflected in Singapore, which obviously bore no resemblance to what was happening in Japan. So it was just a very diverse region, very, very difficult to serve. And I don't think we ever made a spectacularly good job of that. We did much better now.
Well, as we move in to talk about the future, I guess for one of those things, geography could be in there. But here it is. Andrew, you told me to use the magic 2x2 matrix. And here it is now. We have one. And to play with on the future, which is, where is MEF going next? I'll tell you what, to start, I'll show what I put in there, and you can tell me off if I got anything wrong. But in terms of the services that we are providing today to our existing members, we provide information, events, networking, and codes. I think, and here I'm actually venturing something, and let's see if Andrew will keep on nodding. Recently, we started developing new things for our existing members. And I would summarize them as trust services. So the independency, the third party, the value that MEF brings to the table by not being associated to anything has actually meant that we are now welcome to manage, to administer, to be the secretariat of things as important as the UK registry for SMS, the code of conduct in Brazil, and these trust services really mean something for the industry. Or I should say in RCS co-creation, we don't create anything on MEF, but our members create within this roof things between themselves. And we like that. We like to be a home for a playground, if you want. I also would suggest that we probably are seeing a big development because mobile was there for enterprise to consume, but never to actively develop their services in mobile. That was not necessarily what we've seen before. With Industry 4.0, with digital transformation, these companies now need to be guided in understanding the complexity of the ecosystem as well. And we have probably a future in doing that. We've seen it with enterprise communications, where enterprises come and see what we suggest in there as well, for A2P, etc. So I put it out there, but I don't know, and I certainly don't know what are the new services for the new members out there. You know, what's going to happen there. Anyway, there was a little game on the 2x2 metrics, but how did I do? And what do you think?
I think, I mean, look, this is exactly right, Dario. And look, I think the great achievement over the last few years has exactly been to find new services, that genuinely new and unique services that were relevant and valuable to our established membership base. You know, the trust, the short code registry, the fact that that is now being extended out to new geographies, that new geographies are asking, new countries are asking us for this, and so we're becoming not just a national service provider but a global service provider for this, I think is a tremendous expansion. For years people used to say, what is MEF's strategy? You know, what is MEF's product strategy going forward? And the answer was always to meet your needs. We are an instrument, and a tool for you as members and for the industry to solve your problems with. We are a collective machine. We are a collective tool which enables you to use the collective power to solve problems which you and companies like you have to solve. And that was always our vision of how we should evolve, rather than saying, okay, we're going to drive this industry into new services and you're going to follow us, which doesn't make sense. But it requires it does require a high degree of vision, and I commend the MEF team led by you, Dario, in spotting what those trust services are and what those opportunities for co-creation are, so as to extend our services to our existing membership base in ways that have shown themselves to be valuable, to be relevant, valuable, and necessary. And there are more of them coming along, as I think we know. We for a long time, it was part of our strategy to extend our existing services into new members. We had this concept for many years of the mobile immigrant. That is, of companies that had no familiarity with or experience of the mobile ecosystem, bumping up against mobile and going, oh, this is all a bit peculiar. What are we supposed to do about this? And they would come in as immigrants into our industry, and they would find MEF there waiting with a series of package of services and information and so on, and networking as well, our classic services, to help them become familiar with the new and slightly strange challenges of mobile. So extending our existing services to new members has always been part of our DNA, or part of the way that we did business, and therefore to identify enterprises as the next new immigrants into our sector, I think is very shrewd. You know, how will we sell new services to new members? Look, if you'd said to us, if we'd said 10 years ago, well, we're going to be selling SMS short code registry services to banks, because we have banks involved in this whole purposes, we'd have somebody 10 years ago would have gone, are you nuts? New services to new members. The answer is, it's the combination of these new services that emerge, finding new constituencies, and the new constituencies that we've brought in with our existing services, showing new needs that will create the future for MEF.
Well, and let's hope the future for these is at least a decade long. I'd like to to be somehow celebrating by video or something, or by virtual reality by then. The 30th of MEF. I have for us one more video, and more will be coming in the next few weeks through our social media. But we should hear more from Rafael Pelon talking exactly of some of these things we'll be doing, the impact we are having in the industry as well.
Hi guys. So 20 years. That's what I would call like a hell of a journey. Can't believe it's almost that. I'm must getting old or something. Congratulations to you all. It's been quite a journey, I can say. So, biggest highlights for LATAM during these past 20 years. MEF has been in Brazil since 2010, so we are going to 11 years right now. Like we started in the Latin chapter when MEF was doing 10 years. So biggest highlights. First of all, the code of practice in 2012. It was concluded and the first version launched in 2012. That was to tackle the issues related to mobile content distribution in the region up then. And it was kind of a big achievement because we had the mobile operators, content distributors, the government, public officers, public attorneys' offices, and a lot of people, a lot of stakeholders gathering together to make this self-regulation thing and document to be created and then to be respected. And it is, incredibly enough, it is still respected so far, and it's still being used so far. Since then, it's been 9 years since the code has been issued, and it's still being used right now. Then its expansion in 2014, when we had the expansion to DCB, direct carrier billing, and other services as well. It's also still in use. And when we were able to manage the standardization of the penalties amongst all of the MNOs. So people would be able to understand what would be the penalties in case of non-compliance with the codes. And it gave everyone a better room to increase their services, to increase their investments in the country. After that, and of course, the code has been used as a model of self-regulation in some other countries like Indonesia and in Africa as well. That's a lot of reason for us to embrace it and to congratulate what we have done with it since then. I think that would be the highlight. After that, in 2016, we also had this really nice case working to fight spamming in messaging, specifically in SMS, and fighting fraud and spam and all the issues that we are still fighting inside of MEF and promoting the better use of messaging services all over the world. In Brazil, we had a lot of trouble.
Apologies there. We inadvertently stopped the video a bit early on from Rafa. But the history, if I can summarize it very quickly, it's a very interesting history. And Andrew, I've lost your video, by the way, but this is a history of impact. You can say that the MEF activities have really made a difference for some of its members at the regulatory level, at the industry level. So I think we can safely say that there's a lot to be proud in the actual real tangible results.
I think it's look, we saved the industry in certain respects. You can turn my video back on again, but something's got caught. Oh, there we go. We saved the industry. I mean, in the UK in 2005, we saved the premium rate industry by creating a code of conduct before the operators were forced to do something much more destructive. In Indonesia, in Indonesia, quite a number of years ago, very similar kind of thing. In many cases, MEF had a real impact by bringing the industry together and responding directly to regulators before it was too late. So it had a real impact. I mean, some of the more recent initiatives, like the registry, I think have a profound effect upon consumer safety. We were one of the first organizations to highlight the fundamental importance of transparency in data usage and data privacy. How important it was that application providers should be straight with customers about how they would use their data, because we said if you don't do that, there will be a terrible crash. We foresaw the Cambridge Analytica type of disaster, and we said to mobile app providers, do not go down this road. And by and large, certainly the MEF members who were involved in that, I think followed that line of thinking, and the industry was a better and safer place for it, I think.
Great. If you are watching now on live on our webinars on Thursday, do leave us all of your details, all of your impressions, all of the examples where you think that we have made an impact. Time is almost running out, so it's probably time also to ask for a bit of a summary to Andrew. So what's your takeaway from these very eventful 20 years?
So, Dario, one thing I'm going to do is, there were many, many people who were fundamental to the creation of MEF. We've named many of them. We will not name many others, and I think they have to forgive us for not doing so, because there isn't the time, and in some cases, as I've illustrated, the names escape me. But there are two people I do want to name. One is Rafael, who was the head of policy for MEF for many, many years, and whose influence was absolutely fundamental in so many ways in creating MEF's the respect that MEF had in many areas, he was another very fundamental figure in the growth and success of MEF. And the other was Mark Harding, now a partner at KPMG, who served as the board finance director for MEF through some of its most difficult and demanding times, and made a huge contribution to supporting the solvency and financial robustness, and many other aspects as well of MEF through some very difficult times. And I'd like to pay tribute to him, to pay tribute to him for the contribution that he made. Many others did so as well. Look, a lot of us have had an enormous amount of fun doing this, and a lot of us have had a tremendous stimulation. I mean, contributing to the community is in itself a great feedback. If you can feel that you're doing something for the collective as well as for your own company, and that you're doing good and constructing value for your own company, but constructing value for everyone as well, that is a tremendous source of satisfaction. I mean, there is a reason why so many people have spent so many years working with and for MEF. It's because it is extremely exciting, extremely interesting, extremely worthwhile, ever-changing, a valuable service to one's own member, to one's own company, and to those, including one's competitors and adversaries across the ecosystem, and ultimately worthwhile, because if it weren't worthwhile, we wouldn't still be here after 20 years.
So true. And on that, I will, expand there are more people out there that have made MEF, and I will ask all of them, just like Patrick did at the very beginning, please send us a note. Please use social media, LinkedIn, to record your video and share it, and obviously tag us, or send it to our website, to our email there, info@mobileecosystemforum.com. Andrew, time flies. It's nice. Even these 40 minutes have gone like super fast, a bit like the last 20 years, I think. I was an observer of the founding of MEF. I wasn't in there, but I do remember.
You have, at various times, Dario, you yourself have played a very fundamental role in MEF, even before your appointment as CEO, and I would like to commend you for the contribution that you made over, what, 10 years, more than 10 years, at various times to MEF. So
yes.
You're not just an executive now, you're part of this 20 years of history, a very important part of these 20 years of history.
And I'd like to tell everybody that is watching now, later, or live, you could be the next part of the history if you haven't been. So do, by the way, we have, elections. We're looking for board members. We're looking for members that are active. It's not just the board members that make MEF. It's the entire community. So do be active. Do tell us, and don't be shy. And I would love to see you all probably writing your own comments and hosting your next webinars in 10 years, in a few seconds from now, about another fantastic decade of the Mobile Ecosystem Forum, and possibly the Mobile Ecosystem Forum organization behind it as well. Well, Andrew, thank you again for being here. Thanks for helping us remembering and looking from the perspective of MEF for the last 20 years. I'm sure we will hear from you again. And meanwhile, thanks to you and happy birthday to MEF.
Happy birthday to MEF.
Bye-bye then.